The room went silent the moment my son smiled. Not because he was grieving, not because his father had just been buried 3 hours earlier, but because he thought he had already won. "Let's not drag this out," Daniel said as he adjusted the cufflinks I had bought him 20 years ago. "Dad wouldn't have wanted complications." The attorney glanced at me. I sat quietly at the end of the table, my hands folded in my lap. Nobody looked at me. Nobody ever did anymore, not since my husband Richard got sick, not since I became the old woman everyone assumed was confused, emotional, and dependent. Daniel leaned back confidently. His wife, Melissa, squeezed his arm. My granddaughter stared at her phone. The attorney opened the file. Outside the conference room window, rain tapped softly against the glass. Inside, my entire life was about to be dismantled, or so they thought, because none of them knew about the second envelope, and none of them knew why Richard had spent the last 6 months pretending he was weaker than he really was. The attorney cleared his throat. "Richard's primary estate will be transferred according to the documents filed 3 years ago." Daniel smiled. I felt my stomach tighten. 3 years ago. Before the lies, before the missing money, before the secret recordings, before Richard realized our son wasn't waiting for his inheritance, he was accelerating it. The attorney continued. "The residence, investment accounts, vehicles, and business interests are designated to Daniel Walker." Melissa nearly cried with relief. Daniel lowered his head dramatically, like a grieving son, like a loving husband, like a respectable businessman. The same mask he'd worn for years. Then the attorney paused, and everything changed. "However," Daniel looked up, "there is an additional instruction to be carried out immediately following the reading of the will." I saw the smile disappear, just for a second. The attorney pulled out a sealed envelope. My heart began pounding because I recognized Richard's handwriting and because I knew exactly what was inside. Daniel didn't, yet. "What's that?" he asked. The attorney looked at him. "Your father's final letter." The room became still, and for the first time all day, my son looked nervous. 3 years earlier, Daniel had been the perfect son. At least that's what everyone believed. He visited every Sunday, brought groceries, fixed things around the house, took Richard to appointments. Neighbors praised him constantly. Church members admired him. Even our relatives compared their children to him. "You're lucky," people would tell me. "Daniel takes such good care of you." I used to smile because I believed it too. Then Richard got diagnosed. Heart failure, the kind that changes everything. Suddenly, hospital visits became normal. Medication schedules controlled our lives. Every day felt borrowed. That's when Daniel became even more involved, too involved. He started managing finances, paying bills, reviewing investments, helping with paperwork. At first, it felt comforting. Then strange things started happening. Small things, easy to dismiss. A missing bank statement, a withdrawal Richard didn't remember making, property tax notices arriving late, documents moved from drawers, passwords changed, tiny inconsistencies, each one innocent on its own. Together, they felt wrong. I mentioned it to Richard. He brushed it off. Daniel's helping. Maybe I was becoming paranoid. Maybe grief had already started before death arrived. Then one evening, I overheard something. Pure accident. Daniel was standing outside on the patio, talking on the phone. He didn't know I was inside with the window cracked open. I heard him laugh. Then I heard him say something that made my blood run cold. A few more months, and everything becomes simpler. Silence. Then another laugh. "No, she won't fight anything. Mom barely understands the finances." I stood frozen. My own son, talking about me like I was already gone. That night, I told Richard. For the first time in our marriage, I saw fear in his eyes. Not fear of death, fear of betrayal. The next morning, he called our attorney and secretly hired a forensic accountant. That decision changed everything. Within weeks, they found discrepancies. Not huge ones, not enough to trigger alarms, just enough to slowly siphon money. Small transfers, minor withdrawals, carefully hidden, spread across years. Someone patient, someone trusted, someone with access, someone exactly like Daniel.
When Richard confronted him, Daniel had an explanation ready. Accounting mistakes, software errors, misunderstandings. He sounded convincing, almost convincing enough, but the forensic report kept growing, and every page pointed in the same direction. Our son. The son we'd paid through college, the son we'd helped after 2 failed businesses, the son Richard defended for decades. Daniel cried during that confrontation, actually cried. He said he was overwhelmed, financially stressed, ashamed. He promised he'd repay everything. Richard wanted to believe him. I almost did too. Then we discovered the life insurance forms. Someone had attempted to alter beneficiary information. Someone had requested medical records without authorization. Someone had begun quietly positioning themselves for the largest possible inheritance. And suddenly every act of kindness looked different. Every hospital visit, every favor, every smile, every hug, everything. The clues had been there all along. We simply hadn't wanted to see them. Richard made a decision. He wouldn't expose Daniel immediately. He wanted proof nobody could challenge. So he pretended forgiveness, pretended trust, pretended weakness. Meanwhile, he documented everything: phone calls, meetings, emails, financial records, hidden cameras, voice recordings, months of evidence. And Daniel never realized, because greed creates blindness. Then Richard got worse, much worse. The doctors stopped speaking in months. They started speaking in weeks. That's when Daniel accelerated. He began pressuring us to sign documents, suggesting nursing facilities, talking about simplifying assets. Melissa started visiting more often too, always helpful, always concerned, always asking questions about property values. One afternoon, she actually measured rooms while pretending to admire the house. I watched her through the hallway mirror, planning renovations before Richard was even gone. I never forgot that. The deadline arrived sooner than expected. Richard died 12 days later. At the funeral, Daniel delivered a beautiful speech. People cried, people hugged him, people called him devoted. I watched strangers comfort the man who had spent years preparing for his father's death like a business opportunity, and nobody knew, not yet. Back in the conference room, the attorney finally opened the letter. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. The attorney began reading. "If you are hearing this, then I am gone." My throat tightened. Richard's words filled the room. "I know my son believes this meeting will confirm everything he has planned for." Daniel's face lost color. Melissa stared at him. The attorney continued. "Daniel, if you're angry right now, good, you should be." Silence. Nobody moved. "You believed I was too sick to notice, too weak to investigate, too tired to protect your mother." Daniel looked at me for the first time, actually looked at me. The letter continued. "You underestimated both of us." My granddaughter slowly lowered her phone. The attorney opened another folder, a thick one, very thick. Richard's voice seemed alive through the words. attached are financial reports documenting unauthorized transfers, attempted beneficiary alterations, and multiple acts intended to manipulate estate distribution. Daniel stood up. This is ridiculous. The attorney didn't stop. The evidence has already been reviewed by independent investigators. Melissa turned toward her husband. What evidence? He couldn't answer because there was too much. The room exploded. Arguments, denials, accusations, shock. Melissa demanded explanations. My granddaughter started crying. Daniel insisted everything was a misunderstanding, but facts don't panic. People do. And Daniel looked terrified. I thought it was over. I thought we had won. I was wrong, because Richard's letter wasn't the real surprise. The real surprise came 20 minutes later when the attorney revealed the second document, the one nobody knew existed, including me. Richard had hidden it from everyone, even me. The attorney looked stunned himself. Mrs. Walker, your husband instructed that this be opened only if Daniel challenged the findings. Daniel laughed bitterly. Of course I'm challenging them. The attorney nodded, then opened the document, and suddenly the entire story changed. Everything. Richard had created a trust, but not recently. 28 years ago. Long before any betrayal, long before illness, long before retirement. The trust contained assets none of us knew existed. Properties, investments, business holdings, everything acquired through a company Richard quietly maintained. The value was enormous, far larger than the estate Daniel thought he was inheriting. The room froze. Daniel looked confused, then hopeful, then desperate, until the attorney read the final condition. The trust would pass only to beneficiaries who completed annual ethics certifications Richard had privately established years earlier. One person had consistently completed them. One. Not Daniel, not Melissa, not anyone else. Me. Richard had never told me the true purpose. He'd simply asked me to sign documents every year because they were important. I always trusted him. Now I understood why. Daniel looked physically sick because the money he spent years chasing had never actually been the money that mattered. Everything he manipulated, everything he planned, everything he sacrificed his integrity for, it wasn't the prize. The real fortune had been protected decades earlier, and he had excluded himself through his own choices. I thought that was the end. Again, I was wrong, because villains rarely surrender quietly. Within days, Daniel filed lawsuits, contested documents, attacked my credibility, claimed I had manipulated Richard. The community split. Friends took sides, rumors spread, my reputation suffered. The stress became unbearable. Some nights I cried myself to sleep. At 74 years old, I was fighting my own child in court. But then something unexpected happened. Melissa called me. I assumed she wanted money. Instead, she whispered 6 words. I didn't know any of it. For the first time, I believed her. The woman I had judged for years sounded broken, terrified, ashamed. She had discovered hidden debts, secret loans, credit accounts. Daniel had lied to her too. The villain wasn't sharing the spoils. He was drowning everyone with him. And suddenly, the woman I thought was my enemy became my strongest witness. The reversal shocked everyone. Melissa provided emails, records, messages, evidence, years of deception. Daniel had manipulated nearly everyone around him, including the people helping him. The case began collapsing. His social mask cracked. Friends disappeared. Business partners vanished. Support evaporated. The perfect son became the man nobody recognized. Yet one final blow remained, the biggest one. During discovery, investigators found a recording Richard made 2 weeks before he died. Nobody had heard it, not even me. Court permission was granted. The audio played. Richard's weak voice filled the room. "Daniel, if you're hearing this, then you ignored every chance I gave you." The courtroom became silent. "You think this is about money." A pause, then words that shattered me. "It never was." I started crying immediately because I remembered the conversation, the night Richard recorded it, the night he asked me to leave the room. The recording continued. "I would have forgiven every dollar." Daniel stared at the table. "I would have forgiven every lie." More silence. "You were willing to sacrifice your mother's safety for convenience." I saw Daniel close his eyes. Richard's voice cracked. "That's the moment I lost my son." The courtroom felt frozen. No financial accusation hurt more than that. No evidence carried greater weight, because everyone could hear the heartbreak, not anger, heartbreak. A father mourning a living child. The judge ruled months later. The challenges failed. The trust remained intact. The estate stayed protected. Daniel lost nearly everything, legally, financially, socially. But the first climax wasn't the ending. The second one came 6 months afterwards. A handwritten letter arrived from Daniel. The first real letter he'd ever written me. No attorneys, no demands, no excuses, just truth. He admitted everything: the greed, the resentment, the jealousy, the years spent comparing himself to other people, the fear of failure, the shame. And one sentence stopped me cold. "I stopped seeing you and Dad as people. I started seeing you as assets." I read that line 10 times, maybe 20, because it explained everything. Every betrayal, every manipulation, every choice. People become easy to hurt once they become objects in your mind. I never forgave what he did, but I finally understood it. And understanding lifted a weight I'd carried for years. A year later, I sold the house, not because I had to, because I wanted to. I used part of the trust to create scholarships for caregivers and elderly widows, the kind of people society forgets, the kind of people Richard never forgot, the kind of people I almost became. On the day the first scholarships were awarded, I stood at the podium holding one final envelope, Richard's last unopened note to me. I had saved it, waiting for the right moment. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single sentence, the same sentence he whispered during our first year of marriage, the same sentence that carried us through every hardship, the same sentence that echoed back to the beginning of this story, the beginning of everything. "Never mistake kindness for weakness." I smiled through tears, because the people who underestimated me had lost everything chasing power, and the people who valued love inherited something far greater than money. For years, my son thought the fortune was his. In the end, the greatest inheritance Richard left behind wasn't wealth. It was the truth. And once that truth was finally read aloud, every mask fell exactly where it belonged.